the Republicans are believing, they're believing in Reaganomics. There's a whole page in their budget about how normally CBOs, the Congressional Budget Office, when the Congressional Budget Office scores the president's work, well, they don't actually score it. They just kind of let it go on. So when the president presents a budget, the president will include in that budget assumptions about the economic impact it's going to have. You know, by changing policies, we're going to expand our economy by 20%. Tax revenues are going to go up by 20%, that kind of thing. Whereas the way that the Congressional Budget Office does it is they say, okay, you're going to see a 20% cut in taxes on rich people, you're going to have 20% less money. And the Republicans say, no, we cut taxes on rich people by 20%, we're going to have 30% more money because of freedom. Or, you know, Reagan dust fairies or something. So how does that work out? Well, Semdem, a Daily Kos writer, blogger over at the Kos, that Robert Reich recently pointed out that if you listen to right-wingers, I was on a right-wing talk show this morning for an hour, from 9 until 10 o'clock this morning Eastern Time, on a conservative talk show by with a fellow who is like very conservative, but a decent guy who believes what he's saying. And, I would sadly say, I think, I don't know whether he's a sucker or not, who knows. But if you ask these folks, if a state raises taxes and increases regulation and it raises pay, what would happen? And they will invariably say, oh my God, it would be a disaster. Raise taxes on rich people, tighten regulations so it's harder to pollute and things like that, and raise wages of working people, it would be a disaster. Well, that's exactly what California did, and right now California has the most vibrant economy in the United States. Fortune 500 companies in California are producing an astonishing payback. California companies in the S&P 500 have delivered returns of 134%. No other state comes close. They outperformed the S&P 500 by 23%. Why? Because California invested in California. They took the money from that tax increase and they put it into their schools. They put it into their infrastructure, into the roads and highways, into their hospitals. Jerry Brown, a Democrat, is the governor of the state. So they invested in themselves. Meanwhile, in Kansas, Sam Brownback, he of the formerly Senate Republican, he of the K Street House, of just the whole kind of right-wing Republican cult here in Washington, D.C. Sam Brownback said, Reaganomics works so great, let's do it to Kansas. And they did. And the Koch brothers, of course, are all in favor of that. They live in Kansas, and they pay state income taxes. And so Sam Brownback said, okay, we're going to change the state income tax so that anybody who has a sub-S corporation doesn't have to pay any income tax from that. And Koch Industries, apparently, at least some of the larger parts of the company, are sub-S corporations owned by the brothers themselves. So their tax bill went down hugely. So what happened as a result of that? Kansas is now a basket case. I mean, an absolute basket case. Same thing happening down in Florida. In Florida, public transportation has become a joke. Rick Scott turned down billions of dollars for a train. He has cut over $1 billion in education spending. Florida, and you're working and you make over $3,200 a year. That's over $300 a month. If you earn that, you no longer qualify for Medicaid. So, got this right? If you've got to make over $20,000 a year to qualify for Obamacare subsidies. So from $3,200 a year to a little over $20,000 a year, nothing in Florida. And this is the brilliance of Rick Scott and of Sam Brownback. Kansas, in 4 short years since the Tea Party takeover, Kansas has had 3 credit downgrades along with $1 billion budget deficit. Semdem writes at Daily Kos, they are struggling to fund basic services and their education system is hanging on by a thread, with cutbacks making it almost dead last in teacher quality, teacher pay, per student spending, and pupil-teacher ratio. It is so bad that Republican State Senator Wint Winter Jr. said Brownback's tax cuts have been a train wreck. A train wreck. Interesting. Okay, a couple other things here. Actually, one other thing here. I thought this was fascinating, and then I'll pick up your phone calls here on pretty much anything you want to talk about today. But one question in my mind is, given that the Republicans now control both the House and the Senate, they are going to have to come out with a budget. That's their job, which means they're going to have to reveal themselves as the shills for the rich, and the Republicans themselves as the party that basically hates working people. Classic example. I mean, look at what Scott Walker just did in Wisconsin, signing a law saying, we're going to reduce the income of the average working family in Wisconsin by $5,000 a year. Actually, it comes over $6,000 a year, lower in right to work for less states than in union security states. So Scott Walker says, we're going to cut average workers' wages by $5,000, average household wages by over $6,000 by going to right to work for less. Right.